So, I know lately I have been posting a lot of videos showing potential corruption in Robeson County. I live in Massachusetts, and so I wanted to make this video just to show a little of what Massachusetts experiences, what Massachusetts considers an expert with the Massachusetts State Police, and other federal officers like ATF who work out of Massachusetts. So, this first clip is from a very high profile trial that recently happened, and this is an accident reconstruction expert.
Define kinematics in yours.
It deals with the aspect of motion.
It's a subfield of what broader field?
Kinematics.
Kinematics is a subfield of what broader discipline of
I
science?
love how this is like a quiz.
I'm not sure.
A quiz.
In physics, right?
Yes.
It describes how points and objects, systems of objects, how they move, and how the rate they move and the rate of their velocity, correct?
It deals with the motions.
What's that called? The rate of velocity. What's another word for that?
Acceleration.
The rate of velocity.
Acceleration. I knew this one.
It deals with the
Seventh grade
motion. It deals
science.
with forward, and also deals with speed. It deals with travel and speed.
Nope.
If something's moving, it also has a speed to it.
Right. The word you're looking for is acceleration.
I think it was obvious in that clip that Trooper Joe Paul doesn't know the first thing about accident reconstruction. This next clip shows an example of a state trooper from the Massachusetts State Police in the same trial demonstrating professional communications he had involving the case. Let's take a look.
Trooper Proctor,
Yes, Your Honor.
go ahead and say them.
She's a whack job cunt. C-U-N-T. She hot at least? Yes, she's a babe. Weird Fall River accent, though. No ass. Is that chick a smoke? Yeah. If you like women who shit themselves, not bag, as Chief would say. She's got a leaky knot. Leaks poo. She responded nothing. Just saw Julie, and she said when this is all over, she wants to get you a thank you gift. And I respond, get Elizabeth one. Elizabeth's my wife. I text my wife, waiting to lock this whack job up. She was a whack job. She's gross. Oh, fuck her, bitch. Trooper Chris Moore, Trooper Jeff Kukowski, Lieutenant John Fanning, Trooper Dave DeChico, and Sergeant Yuri Buchanan going through his retarded client's phone right now.
I'm going through his retarded client's phone right now. Who's the retarded client? Who was it you were referring to as retarded?
Miss Reed.
Karen Reed, the woman sitting to my left.
Yes, sir.
Subject of your investigation as a professional, correct?
Yes, sir.
As an unbiased, objective investigator, the person that you were investigating, you referred to your bosses as retarded.
I hate that man. I truly hate that man.
I hate that man. I truly hate him. Correct? That's a visceral response to someone who's just doing a job. Were you upset or annoyed or pissed off that Karen Reed had gotten representation, legal representation, to represent her? How do you feel about it now? You're sitting right there.
I still got cheer for him now.
I'll let it stand.
This last clip is new information just released on Tuesday evening showing how the ATF conducts business lawfully. Let's take a look.
Funny story is we had an investigation going on a few years ago. It was actually a pretty well-known investigation. It was in the newspapers of a guy who was in the police academy to become a cop who purchased a Glock pistol from our store and from another store by showing a police ID and signing our law enforcement affidavit that he had powers of arrest. And turns out he was just a dispatcher. And so we can't sell Glock pistols, the number one selling handgun in America, to regular citizens because the Attorney General deemed them too dangerous. So that whole list of guns I told you about, the Attorney General's regulations, they determined that Glock pistols do not meet the Attorney General's regulations. But then they exempted police departments and police from the Attorney General's regulations. So if that doesn't stink of hypocrisy, I don't know what does. But if they're that unsafe, why do we want to give them to cops? Well, because they're really not unsafe. We just don't trust you with the most popular handgun in America. And this is our way of doing a backdoor gun ban. So you can't buy Glocks, but you can as a cop. So this guy who's going through the police academy flashed his thing, and when he's in the police academy, the police chief looks at him and says, "Hey, that looks like a new Glock. Where'd you get that?" "Oh, I got it at Cape Gunworks." "What? You can't do that. You can't buy that. You're not a sworn officer yet." So this police chief launches an investigation and charges the kid with, unlawful possession of a firearm for straw purchase stuff, and gets the ATF involved.
Wow.
So the ATF comes down to us to get the form, the 4473. He shows us his credentials. And some of you might know who this ATF agent is if you watched a very high profile trial that just took place in Massachusetts. So the agent's name was Brian Higgins. And so he's in our shop to get this form, and he's watching us conduct business. And he sees a girl at the counter buying a gun. She's doing her paperwork, doing all that. And her boyfriend walks in and, whispers in her ear, and she points over there, and then he walks away. And this guy's observing this whole thing. And then she finally gets her gun and she leaves. And he says, "I need to see that 4473. And I'm like, I've never been in this position before. I don't just feel comfortable turning over my customers' information to law enforcement agencies just because they ask for it.
Yeah. You need a warrant.
So I'm like, yeah, I think there's a warrant and a subpoena at the very least, that there's some ongoing investigation. So I bring the form into my general manager, and I go in the other room and I ask Brendan, my business partner, I said, "Do we have to give federal forms to the ATF upon demand?" And he goes, "I don't think so, but let me call our lawyer. We have a lawyer that is on call about this type of stuff, especially interactions with the ATF." So he calls him, and this guy used to be one of the directors of the Boston field office of the ATF. So he knows his stuff, right? So he calls him, and meanwhile, while we're off to the side talking, this ATF agent goes into my manager's office and says, "I need to see that form." So my manager doesn't know any better, and he hands it over, and he's taking pictures of it and, writing down information off this form. And then he walks back out. I come out, and Brendan is on the phone with the lawyer, and the lawyer says, and I'll keep it a G rating here, but he says, "Tell him to go bleep himself." And so Brendan comes out and says, "Yeah, we're not going to give you that information. I'm sorry. Come back with a warrant or a subpoena or something like that, and we'll be glad to oblige. But, we don't feel comfortable giving out confidential information just on a fishing expedition by you." And he goes, "What?" He hits the moon. "No one has ever denied me that form. And that's ATF property. Those forms are ATF property." And we're like, "No, they're actually not. We have to retain them as records for 20 years, forever." And he's like, "Nope, that's my property. I can inspect them whenever I want. I want to see that now. And by the way, I already looked at it in your manager's office, so I already got what I need. But you don't tell me no." He was really upset.
So he told you that he already got it?
Yeah, he told us that he already got it. I'm like, "Well, I didn't give you permission or authorize you to do that. And, frankly, I think you're overstepping your bounds here. And we're very pro-police. We'll help any investigation, but I believe you're on a fishing expedition, and you just don't like the color of the skin or what that person looked like who's at the counter buying a gun. Frankly, that's what I think happened here." And he goes, "You don't know why I'm asking for it." And I said, "Well, I'm just calling it like I see it." And we internally knew this wasn't a straw purchase. If he was making the argument that she was buying the gun for the boyfriend or something like that, that's what he was implying. And I said, "Nope, that's not the situation. This girl has been in multiple times, has gone out on the range with an instructor to select a handgun that fits her hand, that one she likes, that, meets the requirements that she has. She's, test fired it. She's narrowed it down and then ultimately made a selection. And today is the day she's picking it up. This is not a straw purchase." And, so he's like, "Well, I'm not going to talk to you about what an ongoing investigation." So he gets back to his office, and his director just got reamed out by my lawyer who used to work for that office. And he basically tells him, "You got to make this right. You got to cover your butt because you're exposed now. You're out there in the wind without any legal protection because you're, demanding this." And so he goes and assembles a grand jury to investigate this girl for a straw purchase, and comes back to us with a subpoena on a Saturday or Sunday morning. I can't remember what day it was, when we have a instructor here from New York to teach a class to like 14 people. People have driven from like Connecticut and Rhode Island and all over Massachusetts to be in this class. And he shows up with like 8 police cars, and he walks in and he disarms everyone in the store. Like, you can't be in the store with me with a gun. I want your gun. And like, so my employees are kind of like, what do I do? And so he's like, you got to, unload your gun, and I'll hold on to it while you're in the store. And by the way, I want everyone out anyway. You can't be in the building with me at the same time while I'm conducting my investigation. And he has a subpoena for the hard drive of our video camera surveillance system, so he can sit there and watch the world go by in 30-second clips, around that day. But he doesn't just ask for the clips for that day. He takes the whole server out of the building. And this could have been done by just him walking in that one closet, which is like a 4x6 closet, but he shut down the entire operation of the building, and with like 8 cruisers parked out front. So it looks like we're, selling
raided,
machine guns to kids out the back door. And so
That's great.
all that to really just throw his weight around and peacock out and say, I'm the guy, you don't ever tell me no, don't you ever forget it. And so he did that to cover his butt because, and then once they found out, oh yeah, it wasn't a straw purchase, they just closed the investigation and went on his business as usual. So it was crazy. But
How do you not sue them over that?
well,
Because technically he got a subpoena, so technically it was legal.
yeah, technically it was. And frankly, it was a small price to pay for a cool story, if you ask me. Like,
For sure.
you know what I mean? Like, not that I would ever want to go
No.
through that again,
Yeah.
but it just shows the level of tyranny that'll happen. And that's what makes me a little nervous about saying there's not any cops that'll enforce this, because cops will do things that aren't constitutional.
Yep.
And frankly, that makes me a little nervous.